Now bring in Aleksander Cwalina, the Assistant Director for the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center. He's joining us from the U.S. Capitol. Aleksander, good to have you on the program. We don't have any concrete details, of course, from what was decided from this meeting, but both leaders saying that there was some progress. What do you make of what we've heard so far?
Thank you, and happy to join tonight. As has been mentioned by the anchors and by you just now, it seems like there's still very little information coming out of what exactly was negotiated or conceded during the summit. All we can sort of say now is the folks are saying that the main victory is on Vladimir Putin and Russia's side. He kind of breezed past this sort of deadline of last Friday to face these quote unquote serious consequences for not stopping conflict in Ukraine and making serious overtures towards a ceasefire without facing those serious consequences. And he additionally received the huge diplomatic recognition that he has been shooting for such a long time with Washington and with U.S. President Donald Trump. Putin's ideal scenario in the summit was this sort of Yalta-esque agreement, which he could make over the heads of Europe and Ukraine that can be later presented as a fait accompli. But I'm very certain that he's also very happy to be treated with a red carpet entrance and with a first take for the press conference, and as well as a very warm welcome in Alaska, and to no longer be treated as a diplomatic pariah as he was and Russia was previously.
Yeah,
Ideally, Putin's main goal with it. Oh yes, of course.
Sorry, Aleksander, it's very significant, everything you've just said in terms of the optics of what we've seen, the literal red carpet rolled out for Putin, the warm shaking of hands, the smiling faces. And then, of course, in that news conference, very interestingly, Vladimir Putin actually spoke first before the U.S. president, even though it was taking place on U.S. soil. It would then seem that Putin was quite confident going into these talks, knowing, of course, that Donald Trump does hold him in high regard and often has spoken highly of him. And Trump wants to have better relationships between the U.S. and Moscow.
Yes, just as you mentioned, Putin's main goal was to sort of move past the war in Ukraine and use the moment to anchor a almost Obama-like Russian reset of relations with the United States, both for economic partnerships and by also through that giving Russia a freer hand in Ukraine. And we saw that on both sides with the core that was present with both the U.S. and American side, whereas U.S. President Donald Trump was joined by Howard Lutnick, the Secretary of Commerce, and President Vladimir Putin was joined by Kirill Dmitriev, who is one of his main financial advisors. This is telling that one of the maybe yet not public discussions of the summit today was about future economic cooperation. However, allies of both Washington in Europe and in Kiev have thrown a strong objection to a sort of reset with Russia before a possible ceasefire, and this has is putting the economic reset before a possible cessation of hostilities is a controversial decision in both Washington and beyond.
And when we talk about beyond, it's of course European leaders who have been watching this very closely. It's so important for them. And they also, though, seem to support Trump's efforts to try and bring an end to the war. It's difficult to forget the head of NATO, Mark Rutte, praising Donald Trump for his efforts and also how he has changed NATO. But they'll be wanting a lot to have come out of this meeting, even though Vladimir Putin has said he hopes that they don't do anything that threatens the progress of the talks that he's had with Donald Trump this evening.
Yes, I think a lot of the both European leaders, both in Kiev and across Europe, are sort of still in a wait and see approach. to see what exactly was promised and discussed during the summit. Sources so far are indicating that the Trump-Zelensky phone call has not yet happened, which is starting to concern some folks in Kiev. But in terms of American-European cooperation, the side that is optimistic is the close coordination this week between U.S. President Donald Trump alongside Vice President J.D. Vance with European leaders to sort of hammer out possible avenues of peace and red lines from the European side. Most notably, this included a charm offensive headed by U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance to sound out these European concerns and also coordinate strategy and reaction. For example, in a Wednesday call, U.S. President Donald Trump signaled a U.S. willingness to provide Ukraine the means to deter Russian aggression in the case of any violations of a ceasefire, and then this sort of warming towards security guarantees. At least this shows that so far, the Washington and European leaders are marching in lockstep about the general expectations and red lines towards a possible peace. But U.S. President Donald Trump has not yet had this phone call in which he debriefs what was discussed today in the 2.5 hour plus meeting with President Vladimir Putin. So it is difficult to tell what the next coming hours and what this week might look like.
Absolutely. Aleksander Cwalina from the Atlantic Council Eurasia Center. Great to get your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.